I never want to hear anybody talk about the Democrats as the party of women's rights again.
Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I would love it since you clicked on the video to watch it, which I truly appreciate. If you would also click on the subscribe button and help me to grow this channel. And if you're returning, welcome back. I truly do appreciate your continued support on my channel, and I hope that you are subscribed as well. So obviously we have something really important to talk about today, as we have been watching the intrusion on women's sports, spaces, opportunities, scholarships, safety, and privacy for quite a while now. And if you are somebody that has been supporting my channel for a while, you know that this is a subject that I have covered extensively and that I do talk about quite a bit, because we knew that this was not going to let up, that this was just going to get worse and worse for women, because we are living in a society where whatever identity someone thinks of in their head is the reality that they should be able to force the rest of the world to go along with. And as much as these activists scream and cry about it being a human right to force people to go along with things that aren't true just because it makes someone feel better, or that it's just as simple as saying words, or it's just easier to go along to get along, and it's not that hard just to use the pronouns that, you know, that go with someone's feelings, and then it's none of our business what somebody wants to identify as. At least those are a lot of the arguments that we hear, and you can let me know if I have missed anything. We know that none of that is true on any level, because obviously using whatever words someone wants you to use, even if they don't align with the actual definition, actually affects literally everything and everyone in society, to the detriment of the 99.9% of people who operate under truth and facts. And we have seen the negative consequences of this ideology hit women the hardest, though boys and men are obviously not immune to the harm as well, as we've seen men become increasingly emasculated and harmed with hormones and puberty blockers, and have their bodies surgically mutilated, and they face a whole host of attacks just for being male, leading to a mental health crisis in boys and men, unlike anything that we have seen in history, at least in modern history, even more so than at times when our country was at war and we were sending men overseas to fight in bloody, brutal battles. But back to the topic at hand, we have seen time and time again that allowing people to apply whatever definition to words that they want to apply is not harmless. It does have real-world consequences, and it is everybody's business. And once again, we are having to address the fact that women's spaces and opportunities that have been under relentless attack by the left, because they have said that boys who change their name, their wardrobe, or their hair are in fact the same as biological women, and that the biological differences are irrelevant and you're bigoted if you point them out. It has now come to this unimaginable point that, quite frankly, we all knew would come eventually: the rewriting of Title IX to make it law across the country to allow men into women's spaces. But it's not just that. There are several aspects to this that people need to understand the gravity of. This also comes down to forcing speech, forcing every single kid in the country who goes to any kind of school that receives any kind of federal funding to use the language that the dictator Biden administration says that we have to use, like fake pronouns and acknowledging boys as girls if that is what they want, and holding the school's federal funding hostage if the school and their students choose not to comply. But as we know, this is the Democrats' version of freedom. You earn your freedom by going along with what the government or the people in charge say, basically like being in prison. It's not the actual definition of freedom where it's something that you have and you only have it taken away when you break the law. No, according to their standards, you are their prisoner and you can be free if you do what they say, which of course is not freedom at all, because you don't get to make the choices you want to make. You are making the choices that they want you to make, or you'll be punished.
Are you ready to choose freedom over democracy? Because that's America. Yes.
So to kind of understand what is at stake here, since Title IX has pretty much been abolished, it hasn't been rewritten, it's pretty much been done away with, let's have a look at this article here. The Biden administration has released its final Title IX regulations, effectively establishing gender identity as a protected class and forcing around 17,600 school districts, 5,000 post-secondary institutions, and various charter schools, for-profit schools, libraries, and museums across the nation to indulge the reality-defining unifying identifications of the LGBT ideologues in their midst at the expense of the very cohort the civil rights law was initially intended to help. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 has long prohibited discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded education programs or activities. According to the late Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana, the Democrat who formally introduced Title IX to Congress, the idea behind the legislation was largely to provide for the women of America something that is rightfully theirs, an equal chance to attend the schools of their choice, to develop the skills they want, and to apply those skills with the knowledge that they will have a fair chance to secure the jobs of their choice with equal pay for equal work. The new rules announced by the Department of Education Friday clarify that sex discrimination now includes sexual preferences and gender identity, and further clarify that sex-based harassment includes harassment on these bases. The regulations state that a school must not separate or treat people differently based on sex in a manner that subjects them to more than de minimis harm, stressing that preventing someone from participating in school, including in sex-separate activities, consistent with their gender identity, causes that person more than de minimis harm. Such perceived harm would be grounds for litigation. So obviously the argument that not allowing a boy who calls himself a girl into the girls' bathroom or the locker room meets the standard of de minimis harm and is also grounds for a lawsuit. And of course it does go the other way around if there are girls that want to identify as boys and go into the boys' bathroom, but we don't see a lot of girls doing this because they know that it would not be safe to be the only girl in a boys' bathroom because biology exists. Let's keep reading. The corresponding rule, section 106.31A2, not only applies to dress and grooming codes, but to locker rooms and restrooms as well. Federally funded institutions that refuse to allow men into girls' lavatories could face legal action under the revised scheme. The Biden administration did not apply this understanding to sex-separate living facilities and sex-segregated sports teams. The Department of Education did, however, note that it intends to issue a separate final rule to address Title IX's application to sex-separate athletic teams. Department of Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said in a statement, "These final regulations build on the legacy of Title IX by clarifying that all our nation's students can access schools that are safe, welcoming, and respect their rights." Former Trump Education Secretary Betsy DeVos told the National Review, "I never thought I'd see the day where Title IX would be used to harm women, but sadly that day has come." So to just address what Secretary Cardona is saying here, this has never been about access. Boys and girls, men and women all have access to bathrooms, locker rooms, and athletics and scholarships and opportunities. Access is available to everyone, and it has never been under threat. This is about safety, biology, and true equality, and the implementation of Title IX is what provided those things to women. Because it is unsafe for women to not have their own private spaces, particularly because the men who want to invade them are not the ones who respect women, but the ones who are in it for their own gratification and sick objectives. Title IX is what leveled the field and gave women opportunities that they would not have if things were not separated by biological sex. So let's just touch on a couple of tweets that I have seen in response to this. This one was from Charlie Kirk. He says, "Title IX was literally passed into law in order to protect women. Yet somehow Joe Biden has managed to so mangle and distort even that law so that now its chief purpose is to let men invade women's bathrooms, locker rooms, and other spaces. It's remarkable how idiotic, callous, and regressive this so-called progressive ideology has become. Every progressive victory simply cannibalizes its prior achievements." And this one is from Riley Gaines. She says, "In a nutshell, the new rewrite means men can take academic and athletic scholarships from women. Men will have full access to bathrooms, locker rooms, etc. Men could be housed in dorms with women. Students and faculty must compel their speech by requiring the use of preferred pronouns. If the guidelines above are ignored or even questioned, then you can be charged with harassment." This one is from Jennifer Say. It says, "The new final rules rewrite discrimination as based on stereotypes, sexual orientation, gender identity, sex characteristics, but not actual sex. They are eliminating sex-based categories and distinctions and gaslighting us into accepting that there is no actual difference between males and females. There is only gender identity, sexual orientation, and sex characteristics, which are not the same as biological sex. They are playing games with language and smuggling in lies. And we're not even really talking about people that have legitimate gender dysphoria and just want to be included. We are talking about mentally ill boys and mentally ill men who have been encouraged to give in to the worst part of who they are and live out their fetishes and fantasies without consequence. We're talking about the worst of men who used to have to hide their perversions behind closed doors and are now able to act it out in public because we now have a government who is using the worst people to destroy everything about our society that is good and strong. I give you Exhibit A.
Excuse me, what are you doing in the women's bathroom?
I'm sorry?
What are you doing in the women's bathroom?
I'm peeing.
Okay, but you're a man.
No.
Yes, you are. You are clearly a man, and you were just in the women's bathroom. Do you know how much money I pay for this school, and now there's a man in my bathroom?
Well, you should talk to the administration.
Oh, I definitely will.
Good.
But why do you feel the need to go into women's spaces as a man?
And just so we're clear, under this new Title IX that really doesn't exist, this girl would be the one that is charged with harassment, and the school administration wouldn't do anything. And as I said before, this is also about forced language. K through 12, college, any school that receives any kind of federal funding at all, our kids will be forced to use this language if that school wants to receive any federal funding at all. And who would that affect the most if they lost that federal funding? The bottom 99% of America who are not elites and cannot afford to send their kids to private school. And this does dissolve free speech, which obviously nobody on the left cares about because their base believe it is the government's job to protect them from hearing things that they don't want to hear. So they're all for it. They've been crippled so much in their ability to take care of themselves that they are only too happy for the government to babysit their emotions for them. But we know that this has just been used as a gateway because they are using this ideology to dismantle the Constitution, because today it's pronouns and gender. Tomorrow they'll make even the purple-haired gender lunatics say things that they don't agree with, though I can't imagine that there really is much on the table that they would morally be opposed to saying. Not to mention, this also infringes on our parental rights to raise our kids in truth and facts, and it says that we cannot decide what values matter in our own home. We have to go by what the government ideology is, even in our own private households. But not only that, there's more. This also makes room for anybody to be able to accuse a male of sexual assault without the male actually being able to defend themselves against the accuser. And just to bring into sharp focus what this means, this is a post by Greg Price. It says, today's Title IX revision not only made gender identity a protected class, but it brought back the college kangaroo courts for those accused of sexual assault. First, a little story. When I was a freshman in college, 2 guys on our football team got accused of rape at a party. It later turned out, however, that the girl made the entire thing up. She later got indicted for it and served 1 year in jail and 3 years probation. Even though they were cleared, those 2 guys lost their scholarships, withdrew from school, and never played football again. The reason it happened is because of Obama-era Title IX regulations that made college administrators the judge, the juror, and executioner when it comes to investigating sexual assault claims. The Trump Department of Education under Betsy DeVos reversed this and required accusers have the opportunity to have a live hearing with cross-examination. Today, Biden's Department of Education under Miguel Cardona brought back the single investigator model. But it goes even further. It also requires colleges to use a preponderance of the evidence standard, where accused men are guilty if just 51% of the evidence points to it. Schools are also now no longer required to inform accusers of all of the evidence against them. Not every accusation of sexual assault is false, but these new rules are going to lead to more innocent men having their lives ruined based on one false accusation. Be careful out there, boys. And we see this stuff happen all the time. I was watching this episode of Dr. Phil recently, and I won't play the clip because Dr. Phil doesn't play games when it comes to material from his show. But he was talking to a family of this teenage boy who is now dealing with this kind of situation. Basically, this guy and his friends got together for a night of drinking. One of the guys was in touch with a girl that he was interested in, and he invited her over. She came over. Everyone had a lot to drink. She had sex with each of them. And they all say that it was consensual, and she agreed with that initially, but then turned around and said that it wasn't. And these guys all insist that they're innocent, that yes, while there's absolutely room to criticize their behavior, they did not force themselves on this girl. And honestly, we know stuff like this could just be avoided if these young adults would look at these situations and understand how quickly it could go sideways, particularly if you are a young man, and they would exit the environment immediately to keep from even being in a place where they could be accused of sexual assault. But based on the new Title IX regulations, these guys wouldn't even get a chance to plead their case or defend themselves. And as a mom of 2 boys and a girl, all of these things are absolutely terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying to me that my daughter is growing up in a world where her innocence is constantly under attack and her safety is always at risk, and that my boys who say please and thank you and who hold the door for everyone and who are being raised to be respectful and good, who are being raised to respect women and who are the first to protect their little sister and look out for others and who are actually being raised to try and make the world a better place, could be accused of the most vile things if they end up in the wrong crosshairs of the wrong person at the wrong time. And don't think for 1 second that this would not happen if your child is not acting inappropriately, because along with all of this, there has been this massive moral decay in society that is creating enough vile, soulless, selfish people who have absolutely no problem destroying other people for no reason. And just to wrap things up, let's touch on a couple more tweets that I thought were relevant to this. This one's from Carolyn Johnson. It says, "For those who believe that the rewriting of Title IX is no big deal because meh, sports, please understand, it applies to every protection your daughter has at school and any other federally funded program, bathrooms, locker rooms, housing, accommodations on school trips. For every activity, band, choir, math meets, etc., there will no longer be a protected female category, and there will be nothing that you can do about it." This one's from Senator Tuberville. He says, "The final rule published today requires schools to allow biological males to participate in activities and clubs designated for girls." This one's from May Mailman. Don't know if that's her real name, but it says, "Reminder, Title IX is not a college law. It affects all education programs that accept federal dollars. That means daycare, Head Start, K through 12, 4-H, etc. Gender ideology is absolutely coming for the kids, and not just in public schools. Any school with federal money." And this one's from Kaylee McGee White. Says, "Reminder that Biden's Title IX rules will not only strip women and girls of their right to fair, safe spaces and all students of their right to due process, but will also threaten parents' right to determine the upbringing of their children," which we know is true. And just to wrap up with this somewhat fuzzy photo of Megyn Kelly, sorry about that, but back to what she says about how she never wants to hear the Democrats talk about being the party of women's rights ever again. Understand that the rewriting of this law or the abolishment of this law, it means that women are no longer a protected class, because you cannot protect something that has no definition. And if anybody can be part of that class just by saying it, then that class does not exist. You cannot be for women's rights when the thing that you are trying to fight for does not exist. You cannot have rights for something that has no class barriers, that has no restrictions for who can be a part of it. If anybody can join that particular group of people, then there is no definition, there is no specific group that you are fighting for. You have dissolved the definition and the meaning and everything that protects women and gives women opportunities and spaces and leveled the playing field. That is on you, progressives. That is on you. People that claim to be moving society further ahead. We are so far back. I mean, even back when this country was founded and women couldn't vote, at least being a woman was a thing. And when they were going to give us the right to vote, they knew exactly who they were granting that right to. And liberals, you didn't just dissolve conservative rights. You didn't just go after the conservative party. You didn't win anything here. This affects you. You just dissolved your own rights. So this is across the board. It is on your hands. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit that like button. It does help me in the algorithm. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to Marco, who's been doing my editing for the last couple of weeks, which has been just a massive help, and he's doing a fantastic job. And if you need him for anything, his Twitter account is linked in my description box. So everybody say hi to Marco and thank him for doing such a fabulous job. Please make sure that you are subscribed. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.